Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. That's where we do business 7 nights a week with you. It's 412-575-2600. Hit us up on Twitter. At KDPomp is my handle. At the Pony Express for Andrew Fillipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. A lot of stuff going on today, but we're going to begin by talking about that game in Jacksonville and the efforts of these two quarterbacks who got an extended look because of the injury to Will Howard. And Mason Rudolph looked like very comfortable in that first possession, moving right down the field, 7 for 7 overall, 9 for 10. And then Skylar Thompson did what he had to do, 3 more touchdown passes. You can tell he's been around, has a little bit of moxie about him. But I don't think it changes, Andrew, anything about the quarterback room. I still think it's Rodgers, Rudolph, and Howard. What do you think of that, and do you think that's the accurate way to go?
Well, first of all, Bob, I just want to commend you again on the start of another preseason with the Steelers. You've been so good at it for such a long time. I try to explain to people
I appreciate that.
How difficult it is when you've got 90-man roster, so you've got to learn 180 names thereabouts, and then double numbers too. And I know that can be a nightmare for play-by-play guys who are not as good at their jobs as you. So I tip my cap again on the start of another season doing this, Bob.
Andrew. I appreciate it.
It
it's
is
fun
a labor
to do,
of
but
love.
it is a challenge
Absolutely.
at times, no question, especially fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do you think about the quarterbacks?
So to answer your question, my opinion is that both of those guys moved closer to the quarterbacks they're chasing. So Thompson moved closer to Howard, and Mason Rudolph moved closer to Aaron Rodgers. I obviously know that Aaron Rodgers is not going to give up the starting job to Mason Rudolph. That's not going to happen. But I've been saying for a while, I think Mason Rudolph has a chance, if given the opportunity, to be another one of these ugly duckling quarterbacks, meaning somebody who was given up on, ridiculed, criticized, made fun of, who goes on to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. And Geno Smith has done that now in Seattle, and he's going to try to do it in Vegas after he, had his passport punched in a bunch of different places and was punched literally in the face by a Jets teammate. Now, we know Mason had the helmet situation with Myles Garrett that hung over his career for a long time, Bob. And I do think he's matured. I think he's comfortable. And I think if given a shot, he would do a good job. And Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. And if he gets hit and hurt, which could happen, or if he just looks his age, I would not hesitate to play Mason Rudolph. And as far as the Skylar Thompson thing goes, he's 28 years old. I do see him more as a fourth quarterback, as a guy that only gets a shot if this Will Howard injury is bad enough where they IR him, and then it gives him that roster spot, unless he plays great in the next 2 preseason games, and that would make that decision harder on the Steelers, Bob.
Yeah, it may, and he may play just as well, if not better. But I still think their future is tied to Howard, at least for now, over a guy who's been around. And I think it would be very difficult to move on or put Howard on, a practice squad or anything like that, unless it's an IR situation. So I agree with you there. But I think it's going to be interesting to play out. And I do think Mason Rudolph, if given a legit opportunity again, because he is older, and you can just tell being around him how he handles things now. I think he's pretty comfortable in where he is, comfortable in his role. He understands it. He's very good about throwing the ball down the field. He loves those kinds of plays. And, I think over a course of a couple of games, if Rodgers goes down, and I cannot believe that Rodgers is going to be around for all 17 games. I hope he is, but he may not be. And if not, you have a guy capable of doing that. Real quick, I'm going to get into the Cam Hayward situation with you before we go to break. I know a lot of people have opined about it, but he came out today, and I give him credit because he needed to explain himself, and he did up at Steelers training camp, and said he just wants to be valued based on his production from last year. How do you feel about this? Because he did get a bonus that was guaranteed to him, and now he seems to want more money, and the question is, how much will they give him from a bonus that is not guaranteed coming up next year for him?
Well, I'm going to take Cam at his word. It's not coming out of your pocket. It's not coming out of my pocket. Explain to me the devastating or negative effect of keeping him happy and motivating him and driving him to have another great season. He's coming off of an all-pro year. It is very difficult for a defensive lineman like Cam, especially at 36, to make an all-pro team like that when you've got Dexter Lawrence and Jalen Carter and dudes like that. And he was deemed to be the second best, or the first or second best in the league with Chris Jones. They shared first-team honors. So I would do it. I'd give him the raise. If he wants, $10 million, maybe that's a different story. But if he's willing to compromise and take $5 or $6 million, Bob, I would do that tonight and put this behind us.
Yeah, and I think eventually it will be behind you, and you don't have to worry about it. But it's going to be one of those things. You hear these kind of rhetoric when guys are trying to get as much as they can before their careers are over, and we see it all over sports. So this is not unusual. It's just playing out with the team captain, and that's where I think it is a sore spot with a lot of Steeler fans. 412-575-2600. I want to hear from you. Call us, air your opinions, and do it right now. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call on KDKA+. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. This is our Xfinity Tweet of the Night. Comes from Major League Baseball. And this is what happens when you live in the land of the Pittsburgh Pirates and you have players don't produce here for whatever reason, gets traded, didn't work in Boston, but now Quinn Priester goes to Milwaukee. He's won 10 decisions in a row, 2.45 ERA in that 10-0 span. He's 11-2 on the year. On top of that, we saw Jose Quintana, another former Pirate, who pitched against them tonight, and he got his 10th win of the year. So Milwaukee is everything the Pirates want to be, but Andrew, they just can't get there no matter what they try. But Milwaukee knows how to do it, and they do it with a modest payroll, yet they know how to bring up guys, develop guys, and they, every year, one or two people get into that lineup and they make a difference.
They're the only team, bottom 10 in payroll right now, that's in position to make the playoffs. They are a model baseball organization, is what Jeff Passan called them tonight. They are 5 games clear of every other team in baseball. That's how much better their record is than the rest of the league. They spent no money in free agency, Bob, like none. Quintana was the only free agent pickup I believe they had this offseason. They got him less than Heaney, by the way, and you saw what he was able to do. You're right, they're everything the Pirates wish they could be or would be. They are going to make the playoffs for the 7th year, 7 out of 8 this season. The Pirates have made the playoffs 7 times in the last 45 years. So,
wow.
Yeah,
that's an interesting difference.
They find a way to do it. And, you say that, modest payroll, it's still $30 million more than the Pirates. The Pirates are at $83 million. And the Brewers are at $113 million.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for the Pirates not to be in that same net, if not more. They could do it if they choose to do it, and this offseason they better do it because there's no other way to change what is an offensive problem that hasn't gone away. It's only going to get worse because there's nobody in their system ready to knock on the door. By the way, I'm to the point now where Heaney, I don't want to see him anymore. I don't know the purpose of him being here.
I agree.
Bubba Chandler, I don't care that he's struggling down there. I think one of the reasons he is struggling down there, Andrew, is because he's been down there all year. I think he expected to be up at some point. He started on fire, and they kept him down there. And all of a sudden, he may be bored for all I know. What's the harm in getting him up here for the last 6-7 weeks of this season and to see what he has going into next year?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see him get a taste. Johan Oviedo, same thing. I mean, we saw him one game, 40 pitches in an inning. Get him back up in the major leagues. Let's see what he can do over the final 2 months of the season. The Pirates' ERA as a staff in August, almost halfway through the month now, is over 6. And that includes the great pitching they get from Paul Skeens. So that goes to show you, Bob, how bad everybody else has been who's picked up a baseball for the Pirates over the first 11 days of this month.
All right, let's get to the phone lines. They're busy and active tonight at 412-575-2600. Our number one Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night is in Ross Traver. Bert joins us on line 1. Hello, Bert.
Guys, thanks. Yeah, the Pirates remain a good developmental program for the rest of the league, especially in their own division, apparently. The Steelers look great. I think they've solved their conditioning program. The thing is, I don't think they threaten other defenses enough at wide receiver for them to do enough underneath with the tight ends and the slot guys and when they make the running game go, be productive enough. The offense, I think, will be too slow-moving in this league.
Well, I mean, they're going to use tight ends quite a bit, and if they have success with those guys, I think DK Metcalf becomes more of a problem for defenses. It just depends on how they do it. I was encouraged that they came out the other day and threw the ball as much as they did. They need to do that more this year to get down the field. The question is, who is the number 2 opposite of Metcalf? And, Calvin Austin's now injured, hasn't been available. We saw Roman Wilson a little bit. 2 catches doesn't necessarily reveal to me that he's going to be that guy. But they still need answers there, Andrew.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth probably come in. But, you need outside options. You need guys that threaten defenses to open up the middle of the field. And Calvin Austin is a better down-the-field receiver of the football. I don't see him as a guy that has the complete route tree. And I also think he's so small that he's more likely to get hurt more often because of just the size disparity between him and the guys that are trying to injure him and tackle him on every play. And so this is a soft tissue thing from what I understand, but still, this is the reason why his rookie year basically got washed away because of injury. So it is the whole of this team, their depth at wide receiver. And Bob, heaven forbid anything happened to DK Metcalf, you're back to square one. You're in the same boat you were in last year when George Pickens was out for a few weeks and you were throwing the ball to Van Jefferson, trying to just, get out of there with very low-scoring wins late in the season.
Yeah, you better be hopeful that Scotty Miller turns into a 100 receiver guy, although he's one of those guys who's going to hang around, I get a feeling. Let's go back to the lines. Mike in the North Hills joins us right now. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hey, Bob. I was wondering, Cam, great player, great teammate and everything, but is that a two-way street? Like if he would have had a bad year, he would have wanted the Steelers to take money back? Or
no one does that. Yeah, again, these contracts, I think what you have to understand is that these contracts, the only thing guaranteed is that signing bonus to them, and that's it. Now, you can blame the Players Association also, Pony, if you want, because they agreed to this stuff. The owners are operating within the context of their CBA, which is to say that the only thing they're obligated to is the signing bonus, the guaranteed money that's attached to this contract, however it comes at you. Beyond that, you don't have a case necessarily, and I think players are going to do this all the time. They're going to test other teams to see what they can get out of their management. And I think that's all they got left because the contract doesn't allow them to do anything but that.
And I think the players found the loophole, which is these hold-ins, where they show up and they do work on the side, but they don't actually participate fully in practice. And the Steelers aren't the only team that's allowed for this. It's happening around the league. Terry McLaurin's doing it in Washington. Trey Hendrickson's doing it in Cincinnati.
Right, he's back there after a very ugly offseason, by the way. You talk about, rhetoric going back and forth. Well, Hendrickson looked like he was not going to show up at all, and all of a sudden things smoothed out a little bit, and he's there. So eventually a deal will be done there. I believe a deal will be done with Micah Parsons, and I think this will be done with as well.
Well, I think so, too. I don't think that Cam means it when he says he would forfeit game checks. Look, I know he loves football and he wants to cement himself as a Hall of Famer, so I don't think he wants to give it up. But if he's really serious about how much he thinks he's worth and how much his salary is out of whack with that, when somebody's 36 years old, Bob, you wonder if their patience just wears out and they say, the heck with this, I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, we've seen guys in their prime, they were Lions, guys like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, for example, who just stepped away and said, screw it. If this is how it's going to be, I don't want to play anymore. So I would doubt that would happen. But when you're talking about someone that's this late in their career, I think they ask themselves questions like, is it worth me putting my body on the line if this is so much less than I think I'm worth? So that's why I think it is important for the Steelers to find a compromise with Cam Hayward before the season starts.
One more call before we go to break. That would be Kirk in Manor. Hello, Kirk. How are you?
Hey, how are you men doing tonight?
Good. What's up?
I'm just
good.
Not much. Hey, real quick, I think Hayward's wrong in everything he's asking for. He signed a contract. No one's holding anything to his head. He agreed to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the fans deserve that.
I understand that take. I do. Contracts are contracts, and those of us in the real world, that's how you have to conduct yourself. You can't go in and say, hey, I want 10 times more what I'm making just because I think I'm valued at a higher level than you believe I am. But this is football. This is sports. It happens everywhere, and I'm not surprised that it's come to this if that's how he feels. And so, therefore, I think he's made that. The question I have is, how did this information come out? Because we did not hear anything about this for the first several weeks of this camp.
Bob, it's not quite apples to apples, but how about the coaching landscape in sports? Yeah. A coach signs a 5-year deal. If his first year is good and he's in demand, that guy usually gets a whole new contract and a big raise. We say that in college sports all the time. So, it's not the same thing, but this idea well, a contract is a contract. That's not true. You know,
it's not true in sports, but it is true in real life. Yes.
No doubt. But like, if Jeff Capel went out and say, you know, this is not going to happen, but let's say he won the national championship at Pitt this year, you know what would happen? He'd have a new contract next year, even if there's 4 or 5 years left on the deal, because that's just how it works. If you greatly outproduce your contract in sports, for the most part, you get rewarded with a better deal.
Even with time left on the current deal, and in many years, as a matter of fact. You're right on that, Andrew. Take a break now. It's time to do that. We'll come back with more here at 412-575-2600. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. It's been a busy day in the KDKA newsroom. Ken Rice is anchoring the news tonight. What's going on tonight at 11, Ken?
Yeah, but I'm still following that breaking story. A series of deadly explosions at the U.S. Steel Clairton plant. We're live at the scene where rescue operations were just called off. And Ray's tracking another day of extreme heat right before rain finally moves in. That and more coming up right here at 11.
All right, Ken, thanks very much. Pony, before we go, aside from the quarterbacks, who else stood out for you in Jacksonville on Saturday night?
Well, I like the way the tackles played. I thought Fautanu held his own against Walker, the former #1 pick of the Jags. I thought Broderick Jones had a pretty mistake-free game, so I liked those things. I thought some of the reserve corners did well. Eccles, Beanie Bishop had his moments, and Thornhill had an old-school hit that broke up a play. So those are things that I liked from the Steelers' 31-25 win.
Yeah, Beanie Bishop is interesting because he earned a roster spot last year as undrafted guy, and now they brought in guys like Darius Slay along with Jalen Ramsey with Porter, and they're making his job a tough one to maintain, even though I think he's performed admirably. So we'll see how that goes. Roster composition is always interesting when we get down to the final roster spots. It will be difficult to come up with some of these things. All right, Pony, we're out of time. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.
See you, Bob. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you guys out there for watching. We do appreciate it. Call us again tomorrow night and every night. We're on the air 7 nights a week right here at 412-575-2600. Good night. We'll see you again tomorrow.